I'm a psychology professor, was teaching stress management to an auditorium filled with students. When she raised a glass half filled with water, everyone expected that she'd ask the typical, is the glass half empty or glass half full question. But instead, with a big smile on her face, the professor asked, how heavy is this glass of water I'm holding? Students shouted out answers ranging from 4 ounces to 2 pounds, and then the professor said, from my perspective, the weight of this glass doesn't matter. It all depends on how long you hold it. If I hold it for a minute or two, it's fairly light. If I hold it for an hour, its weight might make my arm ache. But if I hold it for a day, my arm will cramp up and feel completely numb and paralyzed, forcing me to drop the glass to the floor. In each case, the weight of the glass doesn't change, but the longer I hold it, the heavier it will feel. As the class nodded in agreement, she said, your stresses and worries in life are like this glass of water. Think about them for a while and nothing happens. Think about them a bit longer and you begin to ache a little. They trouble you. Think about them all day long and you will feel numb and paralyzed, incapable of doing anything until you drop them. Back to our truer self. Did you like this story about the professor? This little story contains the first of a series of 3 lessons I want to share with you today about invitation. Invitation. And in this case, the invitation is not so much an invitation we extend to somebody else, it is an invitation to ourselves to step up to a truer, more authentic, spiritual, and soulful reality. These lessons appear in 3 readings. The first was about the psychology professor and her glass of water. As I thought about this story, I quite easily recall times when I have been burdened. If nothing else, the 10-year anniversary of Katrina reminded me, reminded many of us, that there can be times when we are weighed down in our life. For several years, we wanted to set down that glass, but we were given no chance to do so. The time and the struggle was too great of an obstacle. We just had to hang on and work through it. I have done this. My mother used to say, this too shall pass. And she used these words quite a bit too often for my liking, but still, at times they comfort me. Particularly if my arm is outstretched and I'm holding on to something I should let go of. How heavy is this glass? Suggests we can cut our time of worrying about stress to a minute or 2. You might notice that how heavy is this glass does not say don't worry. It says reduce your worry, contain it, keep it to a manageable level. And that's the first point to remember. We have the ability to keep our stress to a manageable level. It's up to us. This month's packet on invitation, and several of us receive this packet each month, speaks of The Invitation by Oriah Mountain This poem is one of the most referenced spiritual writings among all liberal religious groups, for good reason. It invites us, says our packet, to completely rethink what this game of life is all about. Forget what you do for a living, or how much money you have, it says. Instead, well, I will leave instead to the end of this poem, the invitation. It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dreams, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals or have become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own. If you can dance with wildness and let the ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes without cautioning us to be careful, be realistic, or to remember the limitations of being human. It doesn't interest me if the story you're telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself, if you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. I want to know if you can be faithful, and therefore be trustworthy. I want to know if you can see beauty even when it is not pretty every day, and if you can source your life from God's presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand on the edge of a lake and shout to the silver of the moon, yes! It doesn't interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done for the children. It doesn't interest me who you are, how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. The words in the packet say we are asked to tell about our ability to risk looking like a fool for love, disappoint another to be true to ourselves, weary and bruised to the bone, but still do what needs to be done for the children. This represents an entirely different spiritual metric. It invites a radically countercultural vision of the good life. It invites you to be in touch with who you are at your center. Sometimes you see in the second point, we find ourselves when we look from an out of the normal point of view. And then I turn to beginning to begin. A poem that reminds us very early with its words now and then that many of us regularly have fleeting thoughts. This inner sense, which it describes, could, I believe, be felt in the pit of our stomach, the beat of our heart, or an idea that suddenly pops into our heads. Each method works now and then. We know and see it as it happens, but this little yearning is fleeting. This little yearning is fleeting. It appears as if from nowhere and disappears quickly. But then, some of us have paused and considered this for a moment. Some of us have added up what is going well and what is not going so well, and realized that there may be some dissatisfaction with the answers. When you look, when you pause and consider, do the answers to the course you have taken, that straight and narrow, that squirrel routine we heard about before, do your answers speak to you? Norris says we tend to shake off these longings. I see that we ignore them or discard them and return to the routine. But, says Norris, the longing continues. Our practical selves only know how to perfect, produce, and perform. This, at least, we can see as useful. This has results. This perfection, this producing, this performing. We want to believe in this way of perceiving. For a little while, it seems to give us some sort of self-image, even. We are practical people. We try to fit in, to get along with those around us, and with ourselves. This practical side of us wants to perfect, produce, and perform. What this means, I think, is that we have goals, and many of these are performance goals. We have an expectation that if we keep doing, that someday we will get to the end and it will all be done, when the fact of the matter probably is we'll never get to that end of the road where it's all done. It's an ongoing thing that happens to us, this life of ours. There are expectations that we or those around us give to us. There's a bag full of desired results that we carry. Norris says we see them as useful. That, I think, points to our self-image. See as useful implies our view of usefulness, even though those around us are also measuring our usefulness. What happens, I believe, is that we take on what we perceive others think of us and begin to use the information that we have gleaned from what we think they are thinking, whether it's correct or not, to shape our self-image. But, says Norris, the longing doesn't let us alone. It won't go away. We become even busier, perhaps, to take care of it. We numb ourselves with distractions, things to do, consume, and maintain, things to collect, experience, and entertain. We can always think of more miles to run. And so it is. Busyness leads to numbness. Did you notice that? And numbness succumbs to distraction. Modern people are caught up in doing, consuming, maintaining. They are perfecting, producing, performing. They busy themselves with collecting, experiencing, entertaining. And then, in the end, consider the miles left to be run and choose to run even harder. We tell you, I hope this is not you. I hope we're not talking about anyone here. But I know I have been at that point. And that others, many others, have put on their racing shoes and are out on the racetrack of desired results. And here's the thing about that racetrack that we have found. It is not a smooth oval. It's not like the racetrack at the fairgrounds. It's an obstacle course. And each of its obstacles is filled with stress. Each can lead to our distress. The invitation from Norris is to change our way of thinking. This invitation is to trust that little voice. We are invited to step up to our better, purer, more consonant with our heart approach to our life. And for this is the way of life that we want, we really truly want. We listen to that inner voice. This is what we have hoped for it is, plain and simply, our true self. Who we are in this profundity of people who are. There is more to beginning to begin, and I invite you to take a closer look at this poem, read it, consider it. The third point found here is that a shift in thought allows us to begin to begin. And this shift in thought can move mountains. It can let us begin a new beginning. So we've looked at 3 points. We have the ability to keep our stress to a manageable level. We find ourselves when we look from an out of the normal point of view. And shift in thought can allow us to begin on a new basis. But where does that lead? How important are these discoveries to us? And I'll offer here 2 answers very quickly today. First is that they lead us to our own study, done individually, if you prefer, or in the company of those who are looking at soul matters in a program like the Chalice Circles that we offer here at Community Church. Monthly meetings allow people like you to visit with people like you, listening, opening, and serving, as each of you gain in sharing knowledge and integrity. This is a path. It is a way available to help develop your inner integrity. And second, this also leads to a topic I intend to address here in September in each of the services. An insight gained in my study of Meister Eckhart that says many people have too limited a view of their lives. Most people, says Eckhart, most people say those who follow the Neoplatonic way, which will be described later, just see what they see. Later, not today, some other time. Most people respond after they see what they see to the prevailing views of their times, and most are limited by a point of view that fails to consider the full range of possibilities available in our lives. Eckhart invites us to see life as a miracle, in effect, to bear witness to the beauty of the creation and our creation, really this wonderful, precious gift of life that we have. Start with the creation, says Eckhart. See through the creation that the process of life is always changing. And then that we have a chance to participate in these changes. This is why Unitarian Universalists have long been on the front edge, on the cutting edge of the fight for women's rights, immigrant rights, GLBTQI rights, and the rights of those whose ancestors come from Africa, which leads us to Black Lives Matter. The real test in our look at, in this faith, is life on this earth. given the miracle of our presence, given the beauty of creation, given that on this blue dot of earth floating through the cosmos, we are here. Will we be able to step away from the customary patterns of behavior and lift up the beauty and sanctity of our earthly home? Will we participate in finding a way to give earthly life first place in the race of our concerns? Not second, third, or totally ignored. The common approach, totally ignored. First place. So that is what it will take to bring us back to our true self. At least that is the humble opinion of this speaker this morning. May you find love within you and share it with those around you, and may they do the same.